whenever we talk about family business, this issue comes of taking over from previous generation, which in our opinion is not true. It's two generations working together for at least 2 decades. This is going to be the Indian reality. Just to tell briefly, Indian businesses in a way are quite young. Majority of the businesses have the roots post 1980. So 1980 to 1995 was a period in which most of the businesses really went from small to becoming reasonable size. 95 to 2002 was comparatively lean period, and 2002 onwards is a rocket science. So today most of the people from the previous generation candidly admit that we are successful beyond our imagination. हमने कभी सोचा भी नहीं था कि हम लोग ये लेवल पे पहुंचेंगे. And it is at this time that the next generation has to come in, and the journey is not that simple and is not that easy. There are many dynamics come and take place. Next generation goes abroad, studies overseas, and then they come here, and then they see also the Indian ways of practicing going on. There can be either collaboration between the two generations, or there can be conflict. So it is the whole issue that wisdom of the old generation has tremendous value, and dynamism of the new generation can be tremendous fuel. Now it is complementation of the two which is the real challenge. Our agenda today for discussion is about how some of the businesses have managed to transmit the tacit knowledge, the values, the way of looking at life, the way of living personal life, the way of dealing with people, the approach to understanding of cost, all these aspects which was the wisdom of the previous generation, how has that been transmitted or have been imbibed by the next generation. So I will invite on stage members of 4 family businesses who are going to be a part of the panel today to share with us about their experiences. So here we have 4 members from family businesses. All of them are next generation. They have gone through the process of interacting with the seniors, learning as well as reflecting about what the old generation was doing, and at the same time thinking on their own about how they would do it differently. So can we request each one of them to share for a few minutes about what is their business and their background, and then we can start discussing about the way you have managed the process. So would Gaurav start sharing about your business and process?
Good afternoon. My name is Gaurav Poddar, and I am representing the Siyaram Silk Mills Limited. We are a textile and apparel company formed about 30 years ago. Our primary business was to make blended fabrics, and from a single brand manufacturing company, Siyaram, we moved to a multi-brand, multi-product company. We now have fabric brands, Siyaram, Mr. J. Hampstead, and apparel brands, Augsburg, J. Hampstead, and MSD. My uncle, who is my mentor, he is heading the business. He is guiding the business with his vision. And we have a large family involved with the business, and I am part of that family, responsible for the garment division, the apparel division of the company. And it's been 3 years now since I'm involved with this business. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mohit Arora. I am director at a real estate development company called Supertech Limited. We are a north-based, Delhi-based real estate development firm doing developments in Noida and Gurgaon region. we are one of the largest real estate developer from the northern region, having a land bank of 1,000 acres, actually developing 1,000 acres of land in this region. The company was started by my father 20 years back, and I joined the business about 3 years back after completing my civil engineering and MBA from Iowa State University in United States. Presently, I am handling sales and marketing, the total sales marketing of our company, and also looking after venturing into new construction technologies and new concept developments like mixed-use developments and things which are apart from conventional real estate.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sanjiv Gupta from GKB Opticals. We ventured into optical business long back. It was about more than 30 years back, and we started with optical lens manufacturing. And about 7 years back, we had a joint venture with a multinational SLO of France. In retail, we ventured about 10, 12 years back. We had one store in Calcutta, and which was very successful. That store is almost 35 years old. And we saw good opportunity in retail expansion. And after 12 years back, we started to expand into retail. Now we have 62 stores covering more than 20 cities in India. Our stores are positioned at mid to premium, upper mid to premium. And of course, in the near future, we look at a good growth opportunity in terms of mid-segment business, and especially in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sonica Malhotra from the MBD Group. MBD Group was started about 50 years back when my father was 13 years old. He started with a small bookshop. It was called Malhotra Book Depot in Jalandhar, a city in Punjab. And from that, of course, he worked day in and day out. And today, as we stand, as on date, MBD Group is the largest publishing house in India. We have more than 36 branches in India. We have a network of about 10,000 distributors. We publish education books right from nursery to post-graduation. We're also into online education now. We have also diversified into hospitality. We own 2 hotels, the Radisson Blue MBD Hotel Noida, Radisson Blue MBD Hotel Ludhiana, which we own and we manage. We also have retail developments, which we own and we manage in Ludhiana and in Jalandhar. And projects under construction is in Bangalore. We also have our own paper mills and our stationery units. And today, as I sit here today, as I stand here, we're making all our efforts to take my father's legacy forward in the best possible manner. Thank you.
That is a wonderful introduction by all the 4 members of the second generation. Sizable business, growing business, roaring business, and they are entering the business. We will be trying to understand from them what is it that they have learned from their mentors about business as such. You would start, Sonica?
For myself, I think the learning process started right from the time I was born. I was a child. We observed, my sister and myself, our father, in every bit of the way he interacted with his people, the way he tried to do crisis management whenever probably had ripple effects at home and he was discussing things. And of course, it was always there in our mind as we grew up that we will be joining our father whenever we thought was the opportune time. It could be after we finished education or while we were studying. For myself, I think to say that there are probably 4 to 5 points which I have imbibed or I'm trying to imbibe out of my father would be probably an understatement, because I think my father had facets which some of them can be put in words and some of them cannot be put in words. But I think in terms of paucity of time, I like to prioritize them, which I think are probably the top 4 or 5 attributes which I think I've observed in my father, and I'm making all possible efforts to take it forward. I think one, our father was a very family man. You know, he never kind of understood or defined organizations as companies. He always defined them as families. He says that I have, as a leader of the organization, the responsibility on my head to give them one, employment, give them the opportunity to prove their self-worth, and then add the emotional element that apart from the remuneration, they're attached to the organization and they give more than 100% to take his vision forward, and which he implemented in every bit of the way. Which I think in every day, in every moment of our business, I try and inculcate. And one is seeing that, you know, since I've joined business, the attrition rate is very low in the company. I mean, I could have probably imagined once I joined there could be huge attrition because of a different philosophy, but that hasn't happened. So one is taking that forward in every way.
Just sorry to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
She says that her father was a family man, treated the company like a family. Suppose Sonica had gone to a college in which she learned that business should be handled professionally and what it is the result which should matter. Suppose if you had that kind of learning from somewhere else and you are having a dialogue with your father, what would have happened?
My father was a hardcore professional. Now, professional delivery and a vision and putting systems in place in the company is something which is taken for granted. I mean, he would take that as one of the topmost priority. But at the end of the day, if I see all the companies, I mean, people are here to work. But if you do not give them the environment, that family culture, that softer touch, you may be giving them a lakh salary, they can get a lakh salary somewhere else. Why would they choose your company? That touch made all the difference. And that's the family value. It doesn't mean that you're unprofessional and run in a family way. I'm not saying that. Professionalism is the standpoint, and then you build up into
Here, I guess, is a lesson for most of us from second generation who think that the family way and professional way seem to be opposed to each other, which is not so. It is the family values which gives people a sense of belonging. At the same time, working with result orientation is perfectly possible. This is what is one of the learning. Your next point, whatever you have.
The other thing is that he said that there is never an easy way out for anything. I mean, irrespective of the fact that you're my daughter, you have to prove yourself, which he did, put in the hard work to achieve your results, and also lead by example. So in terms of the number of hours he put in the company, in terms of being on the situation, in terms of crisis, he was leading by example, which I think I have, and I'm trying at my level best to imbibe. Apart from that, there was this great degree of spirituality, which actually he inculcated in the organization. He said that with spirituality, you connected from within. You exactly knew what you want to achieve in life. It's very important for the leader as well as the employees to spiritually connect with themselves to know that are they at the right job, are they doing what they want to do, and then only they'll give the 100%. He was a very spiritual man, and he used to practice that in terms of religious ceremonies, trying to tell them to, mantras he used to chant in the organization. That had a great amount of positive impact, which me, myself, I try and imbibe that. I mean, I like, the mantras,
So
the
here is
spirituality.
again another learning. Family businesses in India have grown with their own approach to doing business. So chanting mantras in the office maybe seem to be working somewhere, And it's not necessary that all organizations have to have only one culture. The family businesses have their own richness, and it's worthwhile learning from the previous generation what are the various things they did which ultimately resulted into the overall growth of the organization. We'll come back to Sonica a little later. Let you understand, Sanjiv, about what did you learn from your previous generation?
We are right now 3 generations in the business. My father's right here. My daughter's also there sitting with him. And of course, the 3-4 main things, important things which I learned from him. One was integrity. To maintain integrity with anybody you deal in the business, whether it's your customer, supplier, vendor, anybody. You should be true to yourself, true to everybody. That way you build a good reputation and everybody will support you in growing your business. There is no shortcut. Second, I would say, was the passion in the business. And he has an amazing amount of passion, and which results in hard work, which we have seen him. He's still 75 years old and still working so strong. We really get inspired. I think that inspiration is ingrained into us and to all our employees. And that's the kind of respect he draws. And of course, all the other things which we have, many more things we have learned from him. But these are 2 important things which I would like to state here. Thank you.
So here is what are we discussing. Did we learn finance? Did we learn marketing? Did we learn about handling people management? Did we learn operations? Did we learn strategy? Perhaps these are the things that we can learn in college somewhere. But it is the way we implement all these things in our business, in our family, in our life, is something that can be learned only from the previous generation. So we may not be able to coin out, or we may not be able to articulate, as Sonica said, that there are too many things to say, but this working together seems to transmit and bring in the wisdom of the previous generation. Mohit, you studied abroad and then you came and worked in India. So studying abroad and then coming and working in India, what kind of challenges you faced?
Studying abroad and working abroad is a totally different kind of environment. People are professional, people are practical, and they first think about themselves. And
just hold for a minute. This is what is a typical, I would say, a syndrome, where we think that the way we do things abroad is called professional. It's not necessarily so. People in India may work a little differently, but they also can be equally professional. I'm not talking about Mohit, but I'm talking about many people who study abroad, and once they have a feeling, they look to in their own business little differently. So take it forward.
Yeah, but I never worked abroad. I, of course, studied abroad. I never worked there. Coming back to the family and working with the family was also a bit, there was a challenge, of course, because there was a generation gap. But the way we are working, way I am working with my family is because there is a generation gap also. So my father would take a certain decision in a certain manner, and I would take a certain decision in a different manner. So, but the way I tackle this kind of situation is I try to convince my father for something which I think is the right way to do it, and I try to sell the idea to him, and eventually, fortunately, he's also open enough that he welcomes new ideas, he welcomes new things into the business and take the decisions accordingly.
Well, it's not so for all the people as much as Mohit says about. Mohit is telling that he convinces his father and his father is open and gets convinced. I deal with hundreds of students and people from second generation in family business. It doesn't happen that easily. But in my opinion, it should not happen also that easily. It's not necessary that next generation gives idea and previous generation accepts idea. It's not at all desirable. What is desirable is the ability to appreciate each other's perspective. I call it that we are in a building where one person is on the ground floor, another person is on 15th floor. The person from the ground floor sees the world from a very different perspective. A person from the 15th floor sees the business from a different perspective. We can't say that we see it same way. Rather, we should understand that from their perspective, how the world looks like, and a dialogue between the two generations, that makes things much easier. It's not necessary that who is right. What is more important is the dialogue between the two. Here, Gaurav, will you tell us about how your learning process took place in your family?
So I also, Parimasa, studied abroad and came in with different mindsets, different academic backgrounds. When I joined the business, I did not have any formal business background academically or with work experience wise. So I was told by my uncle to understand first what we are doing, because if you just start doing something, then you will not really understand what the whole company is about and what we are trying to do. So to get an understanding of what as a company, what we are and what we want to do, you first spend some time with me. So what you have to do for the next 6 to 8 months is you have to come to office with me, and you have to just sit with me throughout the day till wherever I sit, and you have to come with me wherever I go, and you just spend time with me and observe what I am doing. So in all my meetings, whether it is review meetings, whether whatever kind of meeting is, you just sit there and you observe. And then later on in the evening or on weekends, he used to spend time with me to answer some of my queries or tell me why things happened the way they did, why he took certain decisions the way he did. So it was a lot of that kind of a orientation where I was told about what kind of different things we do, and then after some time given some assignment to prove myself.
So here is the discussion about the process of induction. That is, the next generation is being brought in to observe for a while. If time permits, is explained, otherwise sometimes explained, sometimes not explained. And it is over a period of time during this observation that they tend to learn. Now, I would just ask you, any of you can reply, switch off the lights and fan when you leave the cabin. Now, if the father insists on that, and if you think that it is too tiny a thing, what should we do about? Anytime any such thing that you could come across, where father would be, I would say, finicky about every penny, and you would be talking about we should spend so much on office layout and so much on interior and so much on advertising.
I think in my case it's reverse.
Okay.
I'm trying to control him. Well, you're right. The earlier generation was always very frugal and was very careful. And the younger generation is very fast and dynamic. So I think both the generations need to understand each other and move. And that's very important.
Well, I'm not talking about right or wrong. I'm talking about cost consciousness. In your personal expense, you can do anything, but for the moment you come to business, every penny matters. And that is something that maybe a previous generation had a very, very strong inclination. And a younger generation who might not have earned it themselves may have a tendency to be a little liberal about it. And that dynamics is what, can you throw some light?
Yeah, actually I myself is very, because I have, my father has grown from zero to this level. So I have seen how hard work matters and how things matter. So I value money a lot. But yes, you're right. There sometimes there are times when the previous generation gets finicky about things. When we are doing a project of 5,000 crore, and sometimes he gets finicky about let's say lakh or 2 lakh of rupees. But I feel that we should look at a broader picture. I mean, of course, every penny matters. We should, in fact, switching off the light is also matters. But getting finicky at a small amount and not moving forward is also not right. We should look at a broader picture.
Well, this is where it is. You know, we have started arguing. He would say that when a father says that 1 lakh rupees you are wasting, in the younger person's mind, he is becoming finicky about. Whereas as far as the business is concerned, is an essential condition that you have to be cost conscious. You may be spending 5,000 crore on project, still that 1 lakh matters. And this is something that previous generation had very strong, and how do we inculcate from them is an important learning that a younger generation will have. Now I have a second question. There is a very old person in the company who doesn't seem to be working as well as you think. You think he should be fired, your father says that he should be retained. Any kind of this kind of dialogue about evaluating performance of some very old person in the company? Different opinions.
Actually, there was a similar experience what you're mentioning with us. So I joined the business 3 years ago. I'm sitting with my uncle and observing what he's doing. And he is obviously running the show for 30 years, built us from nothing to where we are today, and spent a lot of time, a lot of efforts, and with a group of people also who have spent a lot of time with him, spent a lot of their careers with him to get us to where we are today. They've probably worked with our company for more years than I have been born also. So those kind of a team. So there was one such instance where one of our key persons, when I was discussing with my uncle after one of the meetings that he had with him, we were discussing as to what his role is and why is he there with us, because of the contribution that my uncle was discussing with him. What have you done and what you have not done. Uncle was discussing with him. I was there in the meeting as an induction. So he was telling him that your role is this and you've not done this, and these are the things that are shortcomings that are in your operations, and so on. So my question was, and why do we have him? He's a professional. He should be there.
He is not performing, so why should we have him? And then his response.
No, so there's more to the story. So he responds saying that not everyone's perfect. And one of the good things he said is that at his post, he's a managing director. So if you sit with him, then you will only see problems. You will not see good things happening in his cabin, because only people with problems really go to him. So if a third person comes and sit inside his cabin, then he will think that our company is really, really badly working with operations are very bad. Everything is horrible because only problems are going to him. Everything that is wrong, that is gone to him. So the whole day he's only solving problems. So if a third person comes and sits in the cabin and understands what's happening in the meeting, then he will have a very bad picture of the company. But actually the company is growing. So there are some things that are happening correct also. So that meeting is just to highlight his weaknesses.
So this is all your uncle explained to you.
Yeah.
That this is what happened. So here is like this, that understanding people and ability to work with people, at what stage we should let go and at what stage we should make very tight situation. Sonica was telling something about this.
I'd just like to add, I think I've been a bit fortunate. We might have a difference of opinion, very short term, and eventually we would collaborate with the decision. For instance, I personally come with a mindset that everything should be very systematized, and we as senior management should be involved in more strategy and expansion decisions. And the team that we put in place is actually the ones who are the karta dharta. We are actually people sitting at the back and they are doing a lot of work. So the selection of the people is very important. And what happens is that sometimes in course of emotions, there are people, for instance, at the paper mill division of ours, the person was, continuously been with my dad and, convinced him to set up the paper mill division. When I entered in business, I thought that he was completely unprofessional, didn't know anything about paper mill. I brought that out to him. Now, if you've already set up something and in the course of commercial production, it's very difficult to take an immediate decision, okay, the person needs to move out. So what used to happen was that I used to have rounds of discussion, Papa, that logically speaking, this person is not apt to drive the business. It would take once, twice, thrice, and the fourth time, if it made logical sense, he would agree to it. And he did agree to it. And we did put in a better management in place, and God willing, it's on the right track. So it was more, I think, from we as second generation need to be slightly more patient and open-minded. I cannot be right all the time, and probably the father also needs to understand that he can't be right all the time. So the open-mindedness needs to prevail from both sides, and then come with a collaborative decision, which may not happen in short term, but can happen in medium term. So that's what I think has happened with me. So I'm a bit fortunate. And I really think patience is a key in this. Fathers have more knowledge than all of us. Fathers or mothers, whoever are heading the organization. And we just need to be patient to put the objective, facts behind it.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, the whole idea was, from you, we need to ask questions. Because, whenever you are sitting on a stage like this, it's very nice to talk about nice, goody things about ourselves. And of course, it's good things for us also. But still, there can be some very issues of concern which comes to our mind. So, feel free to raise questions, please.
Dilemma as to whether you should work with your family business or you had the opportunity cost of starting something and building something of your own. I was wondering if you could, if any of you guys could share any personal experiences on that.
Well, it's a choice, but if you have a good family business, it should always be the first preference to join, because then it becomes easier to scale it up. Starting something of your own or getting into a job, you're starting absolutely fresh. So family business, a good setup business, should always be given the first preference. That's my opinion.
Since I was, during our upbringing also, it's a family business. So there is always family in the business and there is business in the family. Even at home, there are so many business discussions that are carried out during dinners where a joint family gets together, or ideas that are being thrown out. So business discussions happen so much at home that you are involved within those discussions from a very early stage, and it becomes like a mind, you get attuned to those kind of discussions and you get attracted towards your business because it is something that is discussed so regularly. So it becomes like an automatic choice, at least for me.
In my case, my family business was in my blood since childhood. We had family discussion at home all the time, and our family, including my mother, my sister, everybody was talking about business all the time. So there was a inbuilt interest since childhood in my case that I have to be in business. I always used to think about the business, what new we can do in the business, and how can we improve the business. I used to give ideas to my father. He used to teach me. But when I completed my education, for a while I felt that okay, I should also work somewhere and try to get exposure of something else also.
I'm sorry, Sonica, just one second, but I think the panel got my question wrong. I didn't mean working somewhere else. I mean starting something new. Maybe it could be diversifying something that already exists, or it could be it could be perhaps scaling the same thing up. But rather than that, maybe kind of starting something in a different industry.
Well, if I were to give my own example, we are into publishing for a very, very long time. And my father himself had a very, open-ended open-minded view to diversifying into different verticals. So when I actually joined in the business, I had a choice, should I want to go into hospitality or publishing? He gave me the choice, do what you feel like doing. My DNA worked better with hospitality, and I joined that. He didn't force me into publishing. So now at this point of time, my DNA is into more finance and legal. So in the publishing, I handle the entire finance and legal. But in terms of the entire operations, I take care of the hospitality and the retail developments. So between myself and my sister, he did not impose decisions on us, because he knew, as I said, we wouldn't be spiritually connected with us. We wouldn't like to take it forward if we didn't like it. So I made the choice. I love the hospitality. I entered into that. And I love the finance. He gave me the charge. It took me time to take charge of that, the finance and legal. It took me about 6 years before it could happen to me. But he made me graduate to that process. So I think that was quite a two-way communication for me. Was it taking the entire scope in my hand, or was it selectively as per my DNA? He gave me that liberty to do it.
Great.
Yeah.
But here this question comes, and I can read the mind of the person at the age of 20 to 23. First of all, why do you want to do something different? Because it seems that there is some urge that I want to prove myself. And then there is a question, why is the need to even prove yourself? That's one part. And I'll tell you, there is a lot of glamour involved in thinking about that I want to do something different. Learning about management and learning about business is that whatever you give me, I manage it to take it to the next level. So doing something different is not necessarily an ideal thing to do, is one of the options. And as far as joining family's business is concerned, whatever business at the level that you join, how do you take it upwards? So I'll just share with you one example. When one of our conference, one person stood up and he said, I studied abroad, I joined working in IBM, I was drawing $100,000. Last 3 years, I have been in my family business and now I am looking at what have I made for myself. And then Mr. Chanderia, who was on the panel, replied, in our family, we aim to create IBM and not to work for IBM. So you should have answered a question that what have you contributed to family business to take it forward, and not about what you took. Family business itself as a foundation, your contribution to your business and what your like should fall within that, then the things can work out much better. But anyway, these are all kind of things. There can be always different perspective and there is not always right and wrong answer. Till they think about it, my question, there are certain issues of attitude, risk-taking. To what extent you will judge yourself as risk-taker, and to what extent you will attribute that you have imbibed from previous generation? She is asking me whether she is talking too much. So she doesn't want to take too much of a risk. Anyway.
I think if I were to compare myself and my father, or generally what I've observed, the first to the second generation, I think the first generation is a much larger risk taker. Because they start from a ground zero. Whatever they do will never make them worse from where they started off from. They're much bigger risk takers. And that's why they grow at a much phenomenal pace. When we join in a second generation, we have a huge amount of responsibility on our shoulders that what your father or your mother has created in the organization, you don't want it to go waste. There's a big moral duty that you have. And hence your risk-taking appetite kind of reduces.
I agree with Sonica's point that when our father or mother starts a company or starts a business, they are much bigger risk takers. But now that by the time we are entering into the business, they are at a saturation kind of point or settled kind of attitude they have. Now at this point, I think in my case, I tend to take more risk than my father. So yes, he actually took the risk and built this whole empire. But when I want to take this empire to the next level, I want to take chances. I want to try new things. And I've been trying new things, and sometimes I fail, sometimes I get success. But this whole risk-taking environment gives you a good amount of experience where you can also go ahead and get set.
Great.
I think the risk-taking situation has changed. Earlier, the risk now is taken on a very calculative risk. So the risk before used to be more on intuition and not so much on calculation, but nowadays the risk is more on the calculation. So I think there is a difference in the risk. And to grow the business, you definitely need to take the risk and work on new ideas.
Okay, the previous generation worked very hard, 14 hours a day, 18 hours a day, they never bothered, they never took vacation. Is it that the next generation will talk about a better work-life balance?
Yes, I feel so. The younger generation, the new generation is more aware, more tech-savvy. It's
or more lazy.
Very more better educated.
Or more lazy.
Can be. Once you have a lot of money, then definitely you can be lazy. But I think we are still in a growing stage and so much of opportunity in business. So it will keep us going. And so definitely.
I think for myself, it used to be that my father used to work a lot. Even Sundays, as I told you, half a day was a working day for him. And I always imbibe that quality of leading by example, working the larger number of hours. So for me, I think it's not that I wanted to have like a work-life balance. But on the other hand, my dad used to tell me that, Sona, I think you should go home. Why are you working beyond 8? Why are you working beyond 9? So I think the fathers, because they've toiled so much to come to this level, they want their children to have a work-life balance, which I don't think I'm able to achieve right now, and because I love the passion of what I'm doing at the moment. So sometimes the parents want to give you that liberty and the kids don't want to take it. So it could be the other way around as well.
My uncle is a very passionate man. He always says that, he also says to his employees and to all of us that when you come to work in the morning, if you are on a happiness level of 100, if you stand at, say, 60, then when you go back home, your happiness level should rise to maybe 80 or 90. At night, at whatever time you go back home, you should be happier than when you came to work in the morning. That comes only if you're very passionate about what you're doing. If you don't look at the watch every hour, if the time flies just by doing work, that's what happens. This work-life balance that you're asking, I asked him once that, don't you get tired? You don't watch movies, you don't go for movies so often, you don't go for dinners, you don't spend much time at home, so don't you get tired? So he says, work is pleasure. Life is my work and work is my life. This is what I love to do and this is what I'm spending my time doing. And at the end of the whole thing, I'm going to say that I really enjoyed myself doing whatever I did. And, spending time with him and growing up with him, it is like a inspirational thing to do. I'm also very passionate now because of him. I see him and it's something that I have also imbibed.
So by the time audience, any questions you have thought through? Yes, please.
Family businesses have a tendency of being very pampering. When you've just come out of graduation, when you've just joined your father's business, there's always this cushioned feel that you have working with him. Everything is so protective. Do you feel this somehow, lacks the exposure that your father would have probably had when he started off? And this somehow is a deterrent factor in, growing or in probably taking it to... Probably, you yourself could have been something more, something, newer in terms of the exposure, but that is stagnated when you're joining your family business. Do you feel that it is appropriate to first learn something outside on your own and then have value for what your father's created? Then you know how to take it forward in the right way.
You are right in a way. I think a lot of people suggest that why don't you work 2 years or 3 years somewhere else and then you will actually value the work or the business which you are joining, the family business. But of course, there's a trade-off where you will lose that much of time. And what I would suggest is if your business requires you, the family business requires you, and you can see the scope of growth, of course, which is always there in India. So I think you should straight away join the family business and move ahead.
You're definitely right that it would have been a different experience, different exposure altogether. If you start something of your own, there will be different kind of challenges, and maybe one will learn better if he'll know what the actual challenges are and how to face them and things like that. But at the same time, I also believe that if you value the platform you have got, it's something very precious, very valuable you have got. If you value that and try to take business forward from there, and you value that platform in an equal manner, that if you would have created that platform, I think if we change our thinking to that, it equalizes both the cases, I think.
So that is how it is. There is always a very, very strong arguments for and against importance of working outside. There is one school of thought which says that it is good that few years people work outside, and there is an equally strong another school of thought which says that it is better to start working inside, and both have their own argument for and against. So it's not so much of a conclusive one straight answer. Anybody wants to add?
I personally believe that, for me, of course, I was put in a completely different vertical, which is hotels. Now, let's say I was given an option. I could go to another hotel, do some industrial training or work for some years, and probably come into an executive level in 3 years at the max. And I would learn the daily working. Nothing about strategy, nothing about overall vision. Me as a, an upcoming leader of the organization, I need to learn strategy, need to imbibe vision from my father, which I can't learn in someone else's organization. I will be at the bottom of the pyramid. So let me be groomed by my father. In terms of technical skills, in terms of running hotels, in terms of food and beverage production, service, you talk about any of the spheres in hospitality, I can hire technical people who have been probably working in the industry for 30 years and actually cover up for the technical knowledge that I may be lacking. So it's better that I get groomed under the guidance of my father, who's learned the bigger tricks, rather than go into the bottom of the pyramid. This is what I feel.
Brilliant, very well said. Any other question? Yes, that side.
This is a sort of a colonial question. See, all of you in the dais, don't you feel you are lucky enough to be born in a family from the day one with the silver spoon and all that? My experience is, whenever I travel throughout India by road, I have a habit of stopping near a dhaba, near an industry, and go inside and meet the chairman, ask him, you're the first generation or second generation? They may be saying, okay, I'm third generation. How much degree within this third generation this company evolved out? Because still if you go to NSE and BSE index, 1/10, even less than that are listed till now. One of the criteria of growth of a company is listing or not. If you go in the Noida, all the BPO sectors or anywhere around, even the company like Red Tap or companies in Kanpur, leather industry, all are unlisted except Mirja Tannery and someone 1 and 2. All are generation and generation running those businesses. And this talk of diversification in hospitality, etc. is okay. They must be growing from 400 crore to 500 crore. But had they evolved out of it, one of the criteria is how much you have grown, or you remain family.
That's a wonderful remark that you are making.
Telling you is a closely held, because I have worked as a company secretary, finance director in different number of companies.
No, gentlemen, we have understood your question.
Okay.
Your remark that the family businesses need to have not grown so much or need to grow is a very well taken remark. Just now our agenda...
It is a closely held company.
Perfect.
It should be like Infosys, when you'll have a stake of 10%, simultaneously keep your control with a proportional growth.
Perfect, all right. Thank you.
Does it help knowing that you can never get fired?
If you're not fit for the job, I think the person should resign and do something else. Of course, the threat of firing is not there, but a good educated person will definitely would not like to, continue if he cannot really give value to the job.
I think the threat of firing is definitely not there. It has a positive. But there is a bigger threat in your mind which prevails because you're going to be an aspiring leader of the organization. It doesn't have terminations attached to it, but it has great moral responsibilities. So internally, it can have a great demotivating factor, which can probably have far-reaching consequences on you. So I think, yes, it is comforting. You can take more robust decisions. But at the end of the day, you become even more conscious than an employee of the company, because you know that you're answerable for everybody. Because you're making a leap or a decision for the organization, not just for yourself.
In any case, maybe getting fired is much easier, because here if something goes wrong, you have to face the music. If the company is going into losses, you have to pledge your jewelry. After all, your personal guarantee is at stake. So it is not only not being fired, at the same time being responsible that anything goes wrong. Everybody else has a choice, but I have to own the thing. So it's a balance of freedom as well as responsibility. And last question.
I just wanted to comment on the gentleman of going public. You don't necessarily decide the size of the company because you've gone public. You may not be large and you've gone public. You could be large and still be privately or closely held. Case in point, Carlson, we have a tie-up with them. Now that's it's the 4th largest hospitality company in the world, and it's closely held. It's a family-owned group. So, but you have the other Marriotts and the Hyatts of the world which are listed. So I don't think it's a criteria that you can be big only if you're listed. I don't agree with that. You have examples in both sides.
We are a public company, so we are responsible for what we do and accountable to our shareholders for what we are growing and adding value to the organization. But apart from that, that is something that we have to do. So there is some kind of an expectation that each of us, our mentors have from us, and even our shareholders have from us. But not looking at it that way as a threat of getting out of the job is more like a responsibility of because I am occupying this position and what I am doing for the company, the business, and for myself and for the people who are associated with this business. What I am doing for them to make this a better organization, a bigger organization, and do something that is meaningful.
It was the whole objective of this dialogue is that here members from second generation who are working based on the lineage and based on the culture established by the previous generation. And this thing of learning from the previous generation and then taking it to the next big jump is the journey that we are witnessing. Thank you very much for all of you for joining on this.